Good afternoon and welcome to another live interactive telephone town hall with Pennsylvania Labor and Industry Secretary Jerry Oleksiak and UC Benefits Policy Director Susan Dickinson. My name is Dirk and I'll be moderating today's call. Our goal today is to provide you with helpful information, answer your questions, as well as updating you on Pennsylvania's unemployment benefits programs during the COVID-19 pandemic. As noted, this is an interactive forum, and we would love to hear from you. We'll be taking as many questions as we possibly can today. So if you have a question, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They'll take down your name and where you're calling from. Then the next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call and able to ask your question directly. If you're listening through our website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can this afternoon. Again, to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Now, we receive a lot of questions during our live events, so if we're not able to get to your question, please send us an email at uchelp@pa.gov. So let's start off this call with opening remarks from Secretary Oleksiak.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you to all those who have joined us. We appreciate your being part of what is now our 10th virtual town hall. Let me start, as I have, with some updated statistics. Since March 15th, our agency has paid out almost $31 billion with a B in unemployment compensation benefits, $12 billion from our regular UC program and over $14.5 from the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program, which is this extra $600 a week, which has now ended, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. $4 billion through our PUA program, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program for people not traditionally eligible for UC, and the remainder through both the federal and state extended benefits program. Since March 15th through June 27th, 93% of eligible claimants who filed for unemployment compensation, those claims have been resolved. They have been paid or they are not eligible for benefits. The remaining 7% are claims that the automated system couldn't approve and need to be reviewed individually by our unemployment compensation staff, and that obviously takes a little longer than a normal clean claim. And given the volume that we have, we still have some claims that we have not gotten to. One issue related to PUA that we want to make everyone aware of, we unfortunately just learned this morning that our external vendor had an issue that resulted in some people receiving their PUA payments later than normal. Now, our vendor has assured us that those of you who did not receive your PUA payments as normal earlier this week should have received your benefits as of this morning. We're sorry about any inconvenience that caused. We are frustrated when these things has happened, as we know you are, but we are doing, again, the best we can to make sure that the benefits that you have earned, you receive. As far as the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program, the extra $600 that ended this past Saturday, the federal government had funded that program as part of the CARES Act initially, and that ran out. The Governor Wolf, and I and our agency have been urging Congress to extend that $600 weekly federal benefit to help our fellow citizens keep food on their table, pay their bills, as the nation continues to experience the high numbers of unemployment and people impacted by COVID. There's a lot of back and forth in Washington right now about this. The parties that are negotiating this have different directions that they want to go. Where this will land, we have no idea. But we are, again, working with our delegation in Congress to encourage them to maintain those extended benefits. And we will certainly let folks know as soon as we know what that will look like and what impact that will have on any payments and our ability to get those payments to you. If you are still waiting for payments from the weeks of April 4th through July 25th, you will receive them if you are eligible, so you will be made whole. As we've said from the beginning, as we've been announcing about this program ending, there are additional state resources that are available to you particularly through the Department of Human Services, DHS. And those programs include Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, LIHEAP, the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And there are also specific programs related to the pandemic that are available through DHS. So we would encourage you to check their website. It's Compass, COMPASS, state.pa.us. And there's also a customer service number, 877-395-8930. There are also resources available through the Pennsylvania Insurance Department, and you can find those on the Insurance Department's website at insurance.pa.gov to learn more about your options there. Also on the state government's page, www.pa.gov, there is a link to resources for Pennsylvanians. That includes how to access mental health resources, financial resources, mortgage and rent information, food assistance, and other things that will help people as they navigate their way through this pandemic. Also, our career links have begun to open across the state. Most of them are open virtually, and we would encourage you to go to their website as well, PA Career Link, one word, PACAREER link.pa.gov, to learn more about the terrific resources that are available through the career link. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Susan for a few remarks, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. Susan?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'll just mention a few things so we can get right over to the questions. First of all, I wanted to bring up some information about the service levels at the UC service centers, some of the changes that are in the works. First of all, the PUA line, the phone line, which is currently open Monday through Friday from 8 to 3, is going to be open an extra hour each day. So we've already changed the hours on our website, so it's 8 to 4, and you'll be able to reach us for an extra 5 hours each week. We've had more staff come on board, and we've had them trained, and now that they're hitting the ground running, they're able to answer your questions, so we're able to expand those hours a bit more. Of course, we're always hiring, and we're always looking for help, from other areas. So as we get more help, we're able to do things like that, such as expanding hours of our phones. We did recently have a question about expanding the chat queue. I did want to bring that up. And of course, as we get additional staff trained in UC and additional staff, comfortable with using the chat feature, we do put more staff on the chat feature and other areas to take care of your questions. So, but when it comes to the chat queue, we did have a question about expanding the number of slots so that people can get in and they're not, denied access to just being in the chat queue. And of course, that is something that is possible, but the issue is unless and until we get more staff to man the chat queue, if we have more slots for individuals to get through, that's fine, but then it's a long wait, and you could be waiting for potentially hours, days. I mean, it depends on how big we expand that chat queue. So, right now it is, if any of you have used chat, you know that when you do get in, it's a 5-minute wait or less. And that's, typically how we've been running it. The more staff we have trained and getting on there, though, of course, the easier it is for you to be able to get through and get in the wait queue, which is only 5 minutes. So that's kind of how our chat queue works. We are also able to, with additional staff, we've been tackling more emails, so we're making good headway there. And all of our contact information is available on our website at www.uc.pa.gov. If you scroll down to the Contact Us, there's a big blue Contact Us button at the bottom of the page. That's where you can get the information and the links and the phone numbers for all of these ways to get a hold of us. So just moving on, I wanted to mention something briefly we talked about last week, and that's a reminder that not everybody is eligible for unemployment who files for unemployment. We have, recently you may have seen stats out there of how 93% of claims have been handled and 7% are still outstanding since mid-March. And that 7%, keep in mind, doesn't necessarily translate into 7% of people are still waiting to be paid. It's, 7% are still waiting to be handled. So it could result in payments for individuals who are eligible, or it results in determinations and denials for individuals who are not eligible. Plus, there's a portion of those 7% who aren't eligible but won't receive a denial because they're working too much. And this has been causing some confusion among those individuals. They may think that they, just because they're not working their customary job and maybe they've picked up another job that, maybe they should be getting unemployment benefits. But it all comes down to how much your weekly benefit amount is. So you want to look at your financial determination that we sent you, see what your weekly benefit amount is and your partial benefit credit, which is 30% of your weekly benefit amount. Add those two together, and that's the maximum gross earnings that you can make in a week before you wouldn't be eligible for a payment. So if any of you have a paper UCP1, that's a booklet that we mail you when you first open your claim. If you opened your claim online, you would have gotten a link to the UCP1. We wouldn't have mailed you one. It's a document that you can search on our website. It's UCP-1, and it's your claimant handbook. It's when you open the claim, it tells you everything you need to know to be successful with your claim, to know, what the ins and outs are, what it is you have to do, what your responsibilities are. And if you look on page 12, it explains part-time work and explains that, you may not be eligible for a benefit if you do work too much in a week. So this is a section that's confusing everyone only because it's not someone who is due a payment, so they're not going to receive a payment from us, but they also don't receive an actual denial because they're not really denied benefits. They're just, for that particular week, worked too much to be eligible for a benefit. So we do have other issues when it comes to eligibility. Even though these were a larger issue in the beginning of the pandemic, we still have individuals filing claims who, are transposing their first and last names or their social security numbers, maybe 2 digits within there, giving us the wrong address. Those things are still, happening. There's fewer claims coming in now, of course, than there were in March, but we still have the same issue with those where staff do have to touch those and have to process the claim properly before anything will go out to the individual. So if you file a claim and have one of those issues, you may not realize anything is wrong until someone reaches out to you. Of course, there's also, complicated work history issues, such as if you worked for the federal government or the military. There's certain things that we need to get about your claim before we can issue a financial determination and issue benefits. Namely, we need your wages. Those aren't reported to the state of Pennsylvania. When you file a claim, we have to go out and get them. So, of course, that's a little more of a delay than your average person filing for a UC claim. There's also scenarios where, you may think that you might be eligible only because you received a financial determination from us and it said that you were eligible, or you may receive a debit card from us and you may think that means that you're going to get payments. But all of these things are just, leading up to your potential eligibility. Just because you're financially eligible doesn't mean that you'll pass all the rest of the tests needed in order to be eligible for UC. Just because you receive a debit card doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up getting payments. We send debit cards once someone is financially eligible so that payments can start being received by you as soon as we deem you eligible otherwise. So there's multiple ways. The unemployment law is complex. There's a lot of different sections of it, a lot of different things we have to know. And, of course, we ask a lot of questions in our upfront application to raise any of these eligibility issues, and we can address them and then determine whether or not you are eligible for benefits. So I do want to encourage everyone to look at our online troubleshooting guide. We call it What's Wrong with My Unemployment Claim. and you can get to it on www.uc.pa.gov. You click on our frequently asked questions button, and then you click on the claimant button, and it will be one of our links toward the top there. What's wrong with my unemployment claim? So we also have additional information on our website about all COVID-19 related unemployment programs. Again, the same website, www.uc.pa.gov/COVID-19. One last thing I want to mention, because it's starting to surface again, is that for individuals on the PUA program, just a reminder that you do not use PINs to access your claim or access weekly claims. That is something that's only for the UC system, for individuals filing through the internet or PAT on a biweekly basis so that they can file those claims. When it comes to PUA, it is simply a login, just like a login if you do online banking or something like that. It's a username and a password, so there's no PIN involved when it comes to PUA. We have been receiving a lot of requests to our PIN reset account from PUA claimants asking for a PIN reset. So that's not something that we do for you. That you don't have a PIN that goes to your account. It's just a username and password. So I did just want to mention that briefly. And now we are ready to move on to the questions.
All right, Susan. So our first question comes from Angela, who joins us live on the call. Angela, go ahead with your question, please.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. I am self-employed, and I run a bed and breakfast. I'm receiving the PUA, and I wanted to know, what are we going to go forward? Because we, as a business owner, you still have indirect and direct expenses. So how am I going to continue to run my business when my business is closed, because the government said that my business has to be closed, so it has not reopened? And then the other question is, on my PUA claim, it says I was given a weekly base allowance, and all of a sudden it says there's a credit next to it, like additional $59. Is that something that I'm supposed to be receiving additionally? And if so, when would I be getting that?
Hi, Angela. So for PUA eligibility, to your first question, if your business is closed because there are restrictions, government restrictions, if counties move back and forth between red, yellow, green, I know we're all green, but, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. If your business is, forced to close because of restrictions, then you would be continuing to be eligible for PUA. And, that is one of the reasons listed on those COVID-19 related reasons that you have to check off every time you file a claim. Your business being closed is one of the reasons, so that would be your reason. And if you haven't been filing lately, like if you were open and then you had to close again, all you have to do is reopen your claim. There is an option there. If someone has stopped claiming benefits on PUA, you reopen your claim. And I should mention for anyone listening, that's true for UC as well. If you're on regular UC and you've stopped filing, but now you need to file again and you have an active claim, you just reopen your claim and then you can continue filing that way. If you are doing any type of work, you would want to, as you file your weekly claims, you would want to make sure that you report any earnings that you have. For self-employed individuals, you want to make sure you report your net earnings. So you would not be reporting gross earnings as someone would be on a regular UC claim. On PUA, as a self-employed person with self-employment income, you would want to report net earnings. Of course, if it's anything less than zero, you would just report no earnings then. So, it depends on your specific situation. Also, regarding the $59 credit, that actually does not sound familiar to me. I'm not sure what that would be. So that sounds like something that perhaps you should call the PUA call center to take a look at your claim, or send an email to the UC PUA account, ucpua@pua.gov, and have them take a look at it as well. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the PUA call center is now open an extra hour every day on weekdays. So you have until 4 o'clock to call them, and then they could take a look and see what's happening on the claim.
All right, our next question comes from Judith, who joins us now. Judith, welcome to the call. What is your question?
Hi, my question is on the during the appeal process. Once the appeal is sent in, the answer to the problem is on there. In my case, it was a severance issue. And I'm wondering why we have to have weeks and weeks of waiting, and then it has to be reviewed by a reviewer, when if somebody would have just sent me the form, I would have been able to fill it out and complete it and send it back. So that's my question.
Hi, Judith. So the determination, I'll start with the determination process and then go into the appeal process. The way it works is, once if you were to raise an issue, like you mentioned, yours was severance, and there is a question on our initial application that asks if you have severance pay, and then it also asks if it's above a certain threshold. This year, I believe it's $21,900. And if you answer yes to those and it seems like there is an issue, generally what happens is an unemployment examiner will call you to ask more questions about your severance pay so that they can determine whether or not it needs to be deductible. Now, what happens a lot is we don't have individuals recognize our phone number, and they may not answer the phone, in which case they do actually mail a questionnaire to individuals that they can't reach. And sometimes, depending on who's processing the claim up front, you might not receive that phone call from an examiner. It might just be an interviewer sending you that same questionnaire right off the bat. So in any case, there is a questionnaire that goes out that is sent if it's needed. But if they can obtain that information, via a phone call or some other way, then they'll use that method because it's faster. However, once you do receive their determination, if it is a denial, and then you have a right to appeal, it sounds like you followed the appeal instructions, and what you do then is your case goes to the referee's office, and then the referee has to schedule a hearing for you, and they'll, if you think of a referee's hearing as kind of like a blank slate, of course they have the determination in front of them and they understand what your issue is, but it's a blank slate in the fact that they're going to start from the ground up, building the facts of the case, and then making a decision independently from what the UC Service Center did. So that's how that process works. And from what I understand right now, the referees' offices are very caught up in their work. They don't have any type of backlog at all. So if you are scheduled for a hearing with one of them, it should be relatively quickly.
Thank you very much, Susan. Now we're going to move to an online question. And this one was submitted by Mickey. It looks like it's multi-part, so listen closely. If a job is hours away from your home address, do you legally have to take it in order to keep unemployment? How long does it take to clear a job refusal? And how do you determine the order in which these are taken care of?
Excellent questions. I'm so glad I was able to type them out as you were reading to me, Dirk. the multi-part ones throw me off sometimes. I don't have a long memory. So let's start with the first part, and that is with a job that's hours away and whether or not you have to take it. And that will depend on your individual circumstances. So the examiner at the UC Service Center will talk to you or send you a questionnaire, as I just explained with the last question. And there will be certain things that they need to know. Of course, they'll ask the distance. They'll ask distance from other jobs you've had. They'll ask about your transportation. They look at the whole picture to see, would a reasonable person take a job and go that far? Is that, doable? And in your situation, does it seem reasonable or not? And so if it really doesn't it seems like it is too far away, and, then you would be fine. That would not be an issue, and you'd be able to continue on benefits. Then if it's not, and, that you would receive a denial, you, of course, would have the chance to appeal that denial. go to a referee and then make your case to the referee. As I just mentioned on the last call, it's a clean slate at that point. So the referee will ask you questions, and you'll give them, the facts so that they can make a determination in that case. How long it takes to come up with these determinations, it could be, even before the pandemic, it could be 6 to 8 weeks normally, and that was pre-pandemic. So now, of course, there is more work to do. It might take a little bit longer. There's no specific range or anything that we have. Some determinations are real easy, real fast. We get a hold of all the parties we need right away, and it could even be just like a week or two. But in other scenarios, it might take much longer. So there's really no specific amount of time, but it could take a while, several weeks. And also how we determine what we work on first. Clearly we want to, it's not quite like, we don't quite have a separate queue for every type of issue that exists in the law. They all kind of come into examiners and are assigned in the same type of manner. But generally, the older cases that we have waiting are the ones that we want to handle. So we have individuals working older cases. We also have individuals working the newer, more easy cases. It's the low-hanging fruit to get them off our plates. So there's multiple ways. It's not just in claims filing that we have issues raised, but we also receive emails from employers or tips from the public when they think something's going wrong, stuff like that. So if ever there is any type of investigation we have to do on a claim, it just goes to our examiner queue, and then our examiners, receive the work, as the supervisors assign it to them. So, and of course, individuals, we have a range of individuals who've worked for us forever versus some who are newer examiners. So, obviously it's easier to give some of our newer staff some of the easier ones to start with first until they get their feet wet and they can dig into the more complicated ones. So it's depends on the situation, but we do have work coming at us from all directions, and we try to funnel them to our examiners in the most efficient way.
All right, our next question comes from online, and it was submitted by Andrew, who states, my payments randomly stopped without any explanation over a month ago. I haven't been able to get through to anyone, and I've still been filing biweekly. Please advise.
Hi, Andrew. So it raises a red flag to me when you say that, because if you've listened to any of our town halls in the past, I always bring up the fraud that's going on our PUA system. And you may be thinking, how does this relate to me? Well, what happened was up until, probably a month, I guess it's more than a month ago, our PUA system was still setting up direct deposit accounts for our PUA claimants. And if someone had stolen your identity and set up a PUA claim in your name, what was happening was the fraudsters were giving us their direct deposit information, and it was overriding your actual real direct deposit information that's in the Treasury system. And so payments were still being made, but they were getting redirected to the fraudsters and not to your bank account. So what we've been saying, now, before you get totally scared, it is possible that this is the situation. It's also possible something else could have gone wrong. I don't want to alarm you right away, but if you look online and you go into the benefit payment inquiry section to see your last payments made on your UC claim, and your payments were actually made, so it doesn't show that payments are held, or it doesn't show that your last payment was from over a month ago, but it shows the last 2 weeks actually being paid, then it does sound like you're a victim of the identity theft fraud going on. So what you can do, we have a general information page. It's actually the first thing that pops up when you go to our website, www.uc.pa.gov. There's a fraud link there, and you can click on it, and it provides information to you. There's a report fraud link on our website where you can report fraud, and our internal audits division will look at your claim and see if that's what's going on. And there's other contact methods there too. So if you can verify that your last payments were made, but you didn't receive them and you were expecting them in direct deposit, it does sound like you should report that to us as a fraudulent claim.
Another question from online. This one comes from Deb, who's an independent contractor with no work at this time. 5 weeks of filing, and I'm asked if I searched for work. When I reply no, I do not receive my money. Why do I have to answer this question?
Hi, Deb. I'm assuming you are on the PUA program because you mentioned you're an independent contractor. So the product is simply a something that we got from a vendor, and it has certain questions in it automatically, and they kind of modeled it after our disaster unemployment assistance program, even though it's not the same as disaster unemployment assistance. That's something that's not active right now and usually gets activated for natural disasters, things like that. So that question doesn't really apply right now. However, the fact that you're saying no to it, that's probably what's holding up your benefits, because the system is designed, of course, when someone didn't do their work searches to raise an issue, and now we have to look at it. So it sounds like we just have to probably release the payments to you because there's really nothing else to adjudicate. There's nothing, there's no question right now of your eligibility because no one's expected to do the required work searches right now during the disaster declaration. So you might just want to, and of course, there are behind the scenes lists of these things, but there's a lot of volume happening. So you might just want to give a call to the PUA line. As I mentioned, they're open an extra hour each day now on weekdays. And you also have the option of just sending an email to ucpua@pa.gov. That's another way, and then they can do that. So just so you know, going forward, you can just say yes to that, and then it will take you through and won't hold up your payment. So that's just an unfortunate side effect right now of having all the regular unemployment rules changed. The systems weren't able to be changed to meet that. So that's what's going on in your situation.
Going back to callers now, we've got Paul joining us on the line. Paul, welcome to the call. What is your question?
Yes, hi. My name is Paul. I am a self-employed contractor, and I am on the PUA. But as of a couple of weeks ago, we weren't allowed to work up until a couple of weeks ago. But since then, I've been trying to work and file my earnings, but the problem is the website does not allow for me to file my earnings. It keeps asking me for who my employer is. And being self-employed, I don't put down the people that I'm working for as my employer. So it's hard for me to report those earnings and to see if I'm still eligible for benefits.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, I've actually, you are not the first person to ask me that. That is something that we need to add. I've wanted to add some more information to our website. It won't be the PUA website, but our uc.pa.gov website with a little more instruction. So I think it does give you a free form ability. I know employers can pop up there and then you select an employer, but it also, I believe, gives you a free form ability to add yourself. So that would be the direction you would go, is just to add yourself as the employer. But I will confirm, only because this system does some interesting things sometimes, and we have a certain handful of staff who work in it constantly. They're the ones who are generally reading the UC PUA emails and taking care of people's situations that come through there. They're very well versed in it. So what we're going to do is we are going to add some more information to our uc.pa.gov/PUA website to let individuals know. If you've seen our website, it does have a guide on there for continued claims filing, but this specific situation isn't addressed in that guide, so we need to update that. So be looking for that soon. And like I mentioned, I think you can just add yourself, but I'm not 100% on that, so we'll make sure to get something up on the website very soon.
Next, we've got Ed joining us. Hello, Ed. Welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes. My situation was kind of the last question, but it's kind of unique. I was laid off. I was approved for benefits. I was being paid benefits. Then I took a per gig / self-employment / independent contractor job. I get a commission check once a month. When I first reported my first paycheck, my first payment, I knew I would be denied for the week because I reported the wages. So 2 weeks later, I filed again, and I guess this was the same situation. It thought I worked at that same place for a week, and they put my claim under review, and I haven't been paid in a month, any claims. And I just became a independent / self-contractor / per gig employee. I need to know if I need to switch to the PUA or just keep filing. The information I've read over and over and over again is keep filing and file your earnings when you get them. But I only get paid once a month. So how can I fix this so I get my benefits?
Hi, Ed. So it sounds, sure. It sounds like it may have just actually, because you had reported earnings, what the system looks for is especially if it was a week, I think you said it was full employment or at least excessive earnings for that week. What it would do then is any weeks after that, it wants to know why you're unemployed again, because it's like, oh, well, you were working there and now you're not. So what's the reason? So, and yes, you said that it says something like claim under review. So that would be why, because it's a situation where you would have to reopen your claim. And I don't know if you've tried reopening it or not, but that would be the reason why it would have shut down after a week of full employment, because now you've now entered a brand new period of unemployment, so you'd have to reopen your claim. And then to your second part of your question, where you are now no longer like a traditional employee, but now you're kind of like more on the self-employed side of things. That actually could be an eligibility issue. That might actually end up qualifying you for PUA instead of UC, since UC is traditionally for individuals who, are regular employees and not self-employed. And of course, the PUA program was created with the self-employed individuals in mind, trying to provide a benefit for them. So I think, I'm not totally sure on this, but I think if there is a question in the weekly certification, I don't think it asks self-employment necessarily, but it asks you to report your employment, and if you indicate there's a new employer, what that does is that then holds it up and drops it off to staff, because they need to know who the new employer is. Now, in a traditional, let's forget the self-employment for a second, in a traditional employment sense, what the staff would do is they would add the new employer to a person's claim, and that way when the person reports wages each week, that's the employer that pops up first. And then they, if there's no issue, they can report the wages under that employer's name. So in your case, the same thing will happen. You'll give the employment information to the staff, but when you indicate that it's self-employment, that should then prompt the staff to have your situation reviewed by an examiner, and you may end up being denied on UC at that point going forward from when you started your self-employment, in which case then you would be eligible to move over to the PUA program and continue filing at that point. So it sounds like you're just having to get that information to the UC Service Center. Generally, they reach out, but it couldn't hurt to just send an email to uchelp@pa.gov, or even try to call them if you want to. I know that's, these days it's hard to reach them, or chat if you prefer to try chat. But at a minimum, send an email and explain the situation. And then if they do call you, we encourage our staff, if they speak to someone through chat or on the phone, they then go in to find the email that you sent, and they'll delete that so that the situation's already taken care of. Someone else doesn't have to get to it. So I hope that helps. And if you can just shoot them that email, and they'll take care of the situation.
All right, we'll transition back over to a couple of online questions. Got one in front of me from Renee, who writes, on the employer side, how long will it be before the employer's UC 640 charge statements are corrected for not showing separations due to COVID-19?
Great question. I think this might be our first employer question. That's exciting. So on the charge statements, so if you are familiar with earlier this year, even just prior to the CARES Act, the Federal CARES Act being passed, there was a state act, Act 60, which provided automatic relief for all employers in Pennsylvania for COVID-19 related charges. So that is actually forthcoming, and all employers will receive relief with the exception of the reimbursable employers. They get a 50% reimbursement that came from the CARES Act. And so that's something that, again, we have a 40-plus-old mainframe system, and it's not easy to make such things happen. So we've been working with OIT to give them the requirements, and we're hoping in the next couple weeks, couple months to be able to make those charges, get all the charges squared away and get all the relief squared away. Our system just isn't set up to provide automatic relief. So it's a kind of a big task that we have there. It's a heavy lift, as we say. But now specifically, when you're talking about having, certain claims looked at because the individuals weren't laid off, from your point of view, but they had quit or they were discharged, something like that. Those come in, we have the, whichever way you may have responded to your UC 45, for example, or if you're signed up for SIDES, you may have provided that information to us through SIDES. And those are then funneled to claims examiners to look at the claim, and, they gather the facts, they make a decision, they issue their determination. And if the person is, they determine the person is not eligible for the benefits and they're overpaid, then that ends up, being credited for your account. So it's one of two things. It depends on what comes first. If that comes first and the examiner makes a decision and that takes the person off your account, or it may just be the blanket relief that we'll be giving to all employers for this time frame. So on either one, I don't know the exact timing of each. Like I said, the blanket relief is kind of a bigger thing, but we have been working on it for a while now, so I'm hoping we're getting close. Or, depending on when you had sent the information about those employees and, when it goes to the examiner, it depends on the outcome that comes out of it. If the examiner approves them, then you wouldn't get relief. If they deny them, then relief would be coming your way.
So our next question was submitted by Lauren online, and Lauren asks, if unemployed and qualified to receive extended benefits, how do I answer the question that asks, if I reported earnings for this week, were you separated from your employer for reasons other than lack of work? Answering no says, I'm not separated.
Lauren, so I know that in the extended benefits, it's a brand new filing module that we have. It does ask you the questions employer by employer, which is a little bit awkward. But in general, if you haven't worked at all, then you would just want to say no to having worked, and then you wouldn't have to answer the questions about being separated, at least to my knowledge, unless there's something I don't know. If it's requiring you to answer something, then, you truly, if you are off due to a lack of work, then it's lack of work. There wouldn't be a reason to check any of the other options that are there. So that's kind of how you can, navigate that. I know it might be a little fussy only because it does offer it instead of generally like regular UC, we ask, did you work? And it doesn't matter which employer, we just want to know if you worked. For anyone who is collecting extended benefits, it seems to tie it to each individual employer. So that's all. You just have to indicate that you haven't worked, or if it is requiring you to answer that one and you truly just don't have work, then that is a lack of work, and that's how you would respond to that.
All right, going back to the phones, we've got Ronald on the line with us. Ronald, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, I was unemployed, but I'm on Social Security and get a pension. I was unemployed in March, and I was unaware that I could collect unemployment compensation until I recently went back to work. Is there any way I could file to receive back weeks from March until whenever I was called back to work?
Ronald, yes. So if it sounds like this is a compound question. The fact that you're collecting Social Security, as long as you're connected to the workforce and you're actually laid off, then Social Security would not be a factor in your claim. It's not deducted. It's not like it's a typical pension. If individuals have pensions that are contributed to by their employer, that's a separate issue. So that shouldn't affect it at all. So now, in terms of you simply being laid off and the time frame that you were laid off, you may certainly, request the back weeks to the time that you were first laid off. So depending on when that was, you would make the request to the service center, and then they would ask why. I'd just ask a few brief questions about it, and then they would either approve it and pay the weeks, or they would, if it were denied, they would issue a denial to you. Now, depending on the date of your claim, it may affect your weekly benefit amount if they change quarters. So what I mean by that is if your claim was opened in July, which is the third quarter of the calendar year, July, August, September, then your base year is different than what it would have been if you opened a claim April, May, June, which could be different than, if you opened a claim in January, February, March, because the base year is based on which quarter you're opening your claim. So in any case, the service center can explain to you, your options and how it could affect you. If you either give them a call, I know phones are difficult to get through, but people do have more success toward the end of the week. If you want to do that, you can always send them an email at uchelp@pa.gov. Or if you use online chat, you could use online chat as well. That's available from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Because of your situation and depending on how far back you want to go, and you did mention March, if it is a quarter change and it might change your weekly benefit amount, that might be something you want to discuss with them just so you're able to ask questions more quickly and get answers more quickly. So I hope that helps, and they'll just ask you a few brief questions and then process your request.
Next up, we've got a call from Kristen. Hello, Kristen. Welcome to this call. You're live. What is your question?
Yes. I was wondering, due to the pandemic, if an individual is laid off and will not be called back per their HR department, they said 2 to 5 years, due to their employer specializes in the airline industry, and would the unemployment benefits, would this be also in part of that about being re-educated into a new field?
That is an excellent question. So what I will say about that is now I'm certainly not an expert in reemployment, and we do, however, in labor and industry have those experts. And they can explain all the different programs that might be available or training that might be available, and that's through the Pennsylvania Career Link. So I'll give you their website real quick. It's www.pacareerlink. So really that's www.pacareerlink.pa.gov. And their website will have a whole bunch of information about different reemployment options and training, and some contact information. Now, I know a lot of the PA Career Links had been closed early in the pandemic, and they're slowly reopening and going to be reopening to provide some in-person services. So there's information that you can get there, and they'll be able to provide what's available and maybe certain things available in your local area.
All right. Next caller is Wen. Hello, Wen. Welcome to the call. What is your question?
Hi, my question is, I have a couple questions, 3. The first is that For those who has the PUA system has unresolved issues without an issue code because of the first week of the unemployed was filing by mistake and honestly filing after working full time, but their unemployment starting with the second week. The first week still pending, but no longer none of the rest of the claim can be filed. So how the procedure to process this? Should we just keep waiting for the call? Are they called us by using the first letter of the capital for the first name, the first capital of their first name or the first letter of their last name? We would like to know that. Or should we try to use the reopen claim to reopen this case? That is two of my questions.
Hi, Wen. So it sounds like there's a couple issues happening. If there are weeks that you have filed for that aren't being paid, there could be an issue. There could be an identity issue happening. So, the instructions for they're called either 424s or 261 issues. There's actually a link on your dashboard in the bottom corner that explains, here are the instructions for getting a 261 cleared, and it'll tell you to send in 2 forms of identification, et cetera. However, it sounds like you also have the issue where there is a week that you worked full-time, so now it's not letting you file the ongoing weeks, which is a system issue that we have and we've been dealing with since it was launched. So since that's the case, I would recommend that you actually call the PUA Service Center and that you have them look at it. Since you have multiple issues happening, that's probably easier, than trying to tackle them one at a time. And so if you want to either call them or send an email to ucpua@pa.gov, it seems like one of the only ways to get past that issue of working full-time for a week and then wanting the rest of the weeks sometimes is just easier for the staff to file the weeks for you. So when you talk to them, regardless if you call them or if you send an email and they end up calling you, they'll ask you the same, weekly continuing claim questions that you would be answering as if you were doing it online, and then they'll just submit payments for you. If you do have the identity issue also going on, they may not submit payments right away. They may, collect all that information and then also ask for the forms of ID to be uploaded to your dashboard. And once they're in your dashboard, then they would go ahead and release the payments. So that's my best advice since you have a couple things going on there.
All right, moving back to a couple of online questions. This next one is from Laura. I applied, received a PIN, filed a few weeks, then went in and it said I was inactive. It remained inactive a few weeks for no known reason, then mysteriously became active again. How do I file for those weeks when it was, quote, inactive?
Hi, Laura. So depending on how far back they were, we started doing something special with the beginning of the pandemic that we don't normally do. According to our regulations, a person has to file timely biweekly claims in order to receive payment. So normally you're only offered two weeks and that's it. If you want anything further back than that, you need to contact us. We need to look at the situation. While that's still somewhat true, the system usually is now opening 6 weeks back, only because it was difficult for people to get a hold of us. It was long lines for us to reactivate claims, things like that. So you may just want to wait. It happens every Saturday to prepare for Sunday filing, where the system will flip any inactive weeks and turn the last 6 of them into active weeks. So depending on the timing, like if you just saw it this week and you're wondering about the weeks, it may flip on Sunday and you may get the right weeks. But if that doesn't describe you, if that's not really what you're looking for, then you may just have to request back weeks. Now, it sounds like you did open your claim at a certain time, so staff would know that you did what you needed to do. There'd be no question. There'd be no eligibility question. It really just sounds like a technical issue at this point. where they would have to make the weeks offerable for you to be able to just go in and claim them. And that's actually something fairly fast and simple for them to do. So my recommendation would just be to send an email to uchelp@pa.gov. We say that there's a 2 to 4 week turnaround time on average, but I mean, when it comes to simple low-hanging fruit like that, you might even get an email back same day. So, depends on the situation. So if you want to just send that in an email, if you prefer to call or chat, you can do that as well. But that might just be something easy that we can pick off and just make the weeks available for you.
All right, I'm being told that we're coming close to the end of this event, so we only have time for one more question. This came from Joe online. After people upload the necessary documents for the identity proof issue, how soon can we expect to be paid?
Hi, Joe. So it actually is taking longer than we would like. It's only because we have so many of them. So soon, we're aiming for the week after, the week that you uploaded it or the week after you uploaded it. But what we might be doing soon is, a lot of individuals who have been sending us their documentation and sending us an email to our DLI Verify account may soon see payments. We're trying to work on a solution to make a whole bunch of those payments at once, only because it is getting voluminous. So you should be looking for those soon. If you have, we have staff concentrating on ones in July, like especially the second half of July right now. So if you just sent it in, it shouldn't be too much sooner. If someone sent it in prior to that, they're going to see payment soon because we're just going to try to go release those all at once.
Thank you very much, Susan. So as mentioned, we're coming to the end of today's live event. We want to thank everyone for participating in this L&I Town Hall. We do appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with you and answer your questions. Let's go ahead and get a few closing comments from Secretary Oleksiak.
Thank you, Derek, and as always, thank you, Susan, for your expertise and your answers for the questions that we did receive today. We encourage you to keep reaching out to UC if you do have questions, and we hope to talk to you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And for the Pennsylvania Labor and Industry updates, visit www.uc.pa.gov. And once again, if we weren't able to address your questions, please send an email to uchelp@pa.gov. And truly, a heartfelt thank you for everyone for taking the time to participate in this call. We hope you stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful day.